Hello and welcome back to Let's Play Tyranny with me, Bring It Down. So off camera I did give Kills and Shadows some more spells. I know that Spectral Blur and Titan's Touch don't stack, but I might still cast them both at the beginning of combat to help build up her lore a little bit. And I gave her Frozen Grasp and Searing Palm. Let's climb this ladder. You see a very old broken section of the wall. There's a rope hanging down that has recently been used to scale it. There appears to be secured strongly enough to hold your weight. I was hoping for something a little better than water and fruit, but I guess I'll take it. It's still free stuff. I shouldn't complain. Let's check on Hyrax, see if we can free him and see why the Scarlet Chorus captured him, or how they captured him. The man bound before you wears disfavored violet, crusted with patches of dried blood. The faint blue light of an oathbound scout sigil, shimmering unsteadily through a thick layer of grime. He watches you approach from under a lowered brow, his features sunken and dark. His right eye socket seems a bit darker than his left, so he bears a near-healed bruise, and the sour scent of mingled sweat and urine wafts from him. Fatebinder, he rasps, then clears his throat. Apologies. Haven't had occasion to say much today. Who are you? I'm called Hyrax, son of Iperia, oath brother of Merrick. Currently attached to the 5th Boreal. Something profoundly wondrous in outliving your enemies. He grins something feral in the way his lips curl over his eye teeth. Get these ropes off of me, and I'll tell you why I'm out here. You got that backwards. Tell me what I want to know, then I free you. He says nothing for a moment, scrutinizing you with narrowed eyes. Fine. My team wasn't the first Iron Guard Akalo sent to this estate. The other never reported back. We were dispatched to recover whatever was left of them, but we found precisely nothing. No gear, no evidence of a fight, nothing that seemed a sign left for other disfavored to find. Then Rolls hit us, at night by surprise, like a motherless coward. We had set watch, obviously, but one of his mages did something to Corax that kept him from calling out. It was the pain of him burning that woke me and the others. The only reason we were able to kill the Chorusman we did. He shudders and releases a sigh. No one else survived. Only the General's grace saved me. We canvassed the area pretty thoroughly before Rolls showed up. The only place we'd stay out of was the cave in the back. The hole scared Rolls, though he closed it up. He looks towards the jumbled pile of stone to the north. Wish we'd gotten a chance to check in there for the first crew. Then at least I'd have something to take back to Iron Hearth. There. That's what I know. Want to get me out of these ropes? Free Hyrax. I'll take care of those bonds for you. Thank you, Fatebinder. Hyrax straightens as you release him, then stretches, his joints cracking loudly. He scowls at his arms, which are obviously badly broken and have healed twisted by his bonds. I appreciate the aid. The Oathbound locks his eyes on yours. Fatebinder, you said to be a close ally of the General, so there's something you need to know. We had a secondary objective out here, the original reason that Iron Hearth dispatched the first squad to this backwater. The Legion lost track of an Earthshaker sent out here a few spans back. Chances are he went as a rogue, as his Archon before him. We can have every Tiersman's mother hurling boulders at us, so if he's not dead, he needs to be. He nods. Your only chance of making that happen now. You know what I know, Fatebinder. I need to return to Iron Hearth and report in. He looks at his arms. And get these limbs straightened out. No enjoyment in that, I promise. Or at least it'll distract me from everything else. Alright, Graven Ash protects. That he does. If only he could do more. Farewell, Fatebinder. With a final glance at you, the Oathbound walks away. So unlike the Scarlet Chorus, it does not look like he's trying to lay claim to this fort, so we don't have to answer to him in order to move back and forth. Alright, Gwyneth, the deed is done. You don't exactly work quiet, do you? I suppose that ruckus means it's all taken care of. Clean and tidy. They're gone. How do you plan on getting into this cave of yours? There's always the chance we get stuck out here, that the mountains would move again, or Kyros forbid, Karen would come back to finish what he started. So Wags, or one of our specialists, he cooked us up an alchemical compound called Ocean's Fire. Burns as fast and hot as the Wrathcaster's spell. Set correctly, it would clear the cave entrance out in an instant. But if it gets bumped wrong, said by some idiot coarse conscripts, we all meet the void well charred. Alright, give me the Ocean Fire. I'll see to the cave entrance. Her sigh reveals profound relief, and she accompanies it with a nod. Thank you. Be extraordinarily careful with it. You want to be within 20 paces when the paste meets the air. I'll hunker down behind some rubble up top, then lob it at the cave entrance. She reaches into one of the crates and pulls forth an unpainted clay pot. She passes it to you with extreme gentleness. You note that its lid is sealed with a thick ring of melted wax. Oh, and don't miss. Well, see what I can do.
I've got it.
The course collapsed the entrance to this cave, blocking it with huge slabs of heavy stone. Clearing it by hand would be the work of a span or longer. Expose a jar of ocean fire to the air, starting its ignition process. Honestly, it did not seem that impressive. Like, it wasn't like that big of an explosion. We stood behind this very thin slab of masonry. I feel like that was more likely to just fall over on top of us than it was to protect us. I saw the ocean fire from here, like a spire of living flame. Felt it too. Imagine it was something like that when Kyros struck down the Vellum Citadel. Not quite the same order of magnitude, no. Anyway, thanks. We gotta get these supplies together and move them inside. But you go ahead. Just, don't tell them I sent you or anything. Who is them, and how will they know I'm not hostile? She rummages through one of the barrels and hands you a soft, cool package, tied off in twine. The beasts that stand guard should let you pass if you give them this. Is it a quest item? That's raw meat. So let's organize this a little bit. Lantry, there's some more fruit for you. Alright, good enough. Let's enter the cave and see what it's all about. Do some exploration. What do we have here? Alright, we're still looking for the sage. I feel like the Earthshaker should also be part of this quest. Since he is a asset of Kyros that's running amok. We don't know if he's gone rogue, if he's dead. But it's still unchecked powerful magic that's running around. Luminescent mushrooms dot the cavern's floor, emitting a disquieting glow without providing much in the way of illumination. The stone formation quietly hums a slowly modulating melody. Its tune reminds you of the Archon of Song. Should I have Siren in here with me? An iron great axe. And some fruit. Alright, let's talk to Hillstrider. The shadows shift before you, in hulking masses of darkness. As they step closer, the pale luminescence of the cave fungi highlights blunt, bony figures. Lips curl back over yellow fangs and violet gums, and sinewy muscles tighten as the beast's clawed fingers spread open. Okay, she was sniffing, but she's not voice acted. Another human. Largest of the figure steps forward, revealing herself as heavily muscled beast woman covered in rust-colored fur. Her yellow gaze narrows intensely upon you, her nostrils flaring to drink in your scent. Does new human offer man flesh to Hillstrider's pack? Crying leather-clads offer more bone than meat. Made short meals for beast woman.
West River Alpha, but reeks of seed salt.
Kills in Shadow sniffs at the gathering of beasts.
These whelps reek of the old walls. Can Fatebinder not smell it on fur?
You ate the people who came before. Beast woman wastes no meat, not even human meat. She scratches her belly with a satisfied grin. I'll offer meat. You look hungry. Beast woman's nostrils twitch. She steps forward cautiously, attention dipping to the offered hunk of meat. Smells fresh enough. Give meat. It's yours if you let us through. She plucks a slab from your hand, inhales deeply of its scent, then licks it with her broad tongue. She steps to the side, and her packmates clear a path. Go through, before Hillstrider changes mind. Given the beast's long, hostile stares, Kills in Shadow snorts and chuffs at the pack as she follows in your wake. Reminds me of the Arcana song. I feel like it might be worth bringing her back here later on. I have to make a note of that. It's weird that it specifically mentions Siren.
Nest ahead. No scent of scourge beasts. Smells of beast woman. And frightened humans.
Outsiders, run! Oh, this is the DLC. Okay. The Fatebinder. How did you... welcome. Fatebinder, good day to you. The young man greets you with a smile as distant shouts reverberate throughout the area, steadily growing in volume. As you might have observed, your presence comes as a bit of a surprise. It's an unexpected pleasure, to receive an esteemed servant of the court. He bows stiffly, revealing a row of multi-shaped quills along his back. Sage Lantry, what are you doing here?
I could ask the very same of you. Taking shelter in the old walls, that takes nerves of iron, or wits of stone.
To squat in the old walls? It is a wonder the Bane have not rewarded their hubris with a painful death.
Scent of Bane is distance. Many beasts nearby. Explains why humans not terrified to be in old walls.
Well, this is unexpected. Though I'm glad to see you alive, my young friend. I'm not here to reminisce. I'm with the Fatebinder now, so I'll need to insist that you start explaining whatever it is you're doing here.
Welcome. I'm Scribe Mel of the Vellum Citadel, though the title means little here. I'm simply Mel. You'll forgive me. We haven't been expecting company, so, He taps a long quill against his thigh, his feather plume fluttering nervously in return, as figures in the distance move in rushed motions and speak in hushed panic. What's all the commotion about? Visitors are always cause for alarm. Moreover, you aren't just any outsider, you're a Fatebinder. To many, it's as if Tunon just strolled into our homes. Your dispensation of justice could have profound ramifications for a little known and technically hidden settlements such as ours. Some of the refugees here don't know your intentions. No doubt they have little to fear, right? What is this place? I struggle with the definition myself, truthfully. We call this place the Bastard's Wound, or just the Wound for short. It's a refuge of sorts, a haven for folks displaced by war and poor decision-making. Everyone that's here discovered this place by chance, but remains by choice. The decor is unorthodox to be sure, but it does come with the benefit of extreme seclusion. Not that we object to the court's presence, or to that of the Archons. We simply thought it best to unburden you all with the weight of governance. I know you have better things to do than check up on us. We're fine, really. Everything is fine. You look past the scribe, taking note of the details in this cavernous area. Giant stone walls flank the space and ascend to an open sky, seemingly shorn apart from one another. Thunderous waterfalls cascade down, nearly ringing the stone-tiled islands that comprise the settlement. Though covered by damp moss and man-made tents, the stone architecture here is unmistakably of the old walls. And why are you all here? Entering to the old walls is forbidden. Ah, of course. I can see why things might appear that way. He stammers, running his hands clumsily over the scrolls along his bandolier. He snatches one from its loop and taps at it nervously. If you look at this drawing of the area, we are by way of several fathoms below the old walls you see rising up. So who's to say if we're in the walls or really just underground? I mean, other than a Fatebinder, of course. I merely mean to suggest that there's some potential ambiguity as to whether we've really done anything wrong. Examine the parchment. A sketch upon the crumpled parchment is a crisscross, or as a cross-section, what appears to be old walls running through the mountainous region of the Bastards here. This map is accurate. These old walls run almost entirely under the mountains. The upper reaches of these old walls are just a few stories above the valley floor. Judging from the map, the old wall slopes upward as it travels north, and slopes downward as it heads south. You crumple the parchment and toss it aside. Kyros' law forbid entry into the old walls, to say nothing of settlement. You and everyone here is guilty of trespass. Yes, of course you're right. He clenches his eyes shut, shaking his head in apparent disagreement with what he just uttered. I mean, your judgment is final, Fatebinder. But before making a, perhaps, official proclamation, I urge you to walk the settlement and see for yourself. The situation is complicated. I fear that most here would balk at such an order. If the punishment is death, I am permitted to adjust the penalties, if there is suitable contrition. I didn't mean to take a bribe. I should have done the first option. That's fine. Yes. Yes, of course. Absolutely. He nods, with nothing to say, nods again. Oh, you mean right now? Well, I can certainly provide a modest contribution. He raffles through his pouches, clumsily searching for a suitable offering. We don't use rings as often as we did on the surface, so it may take me a moment. He loosens a pouch and jams his hand inside. Aha! Here you are, Fatebinder. We appreciate your generosity, Fatebinder. Hope that you come to appreciate the wound in time. No doubt you have many questions of us. I shall do my best to acquaint you with this, outpost. Is there anything I can help you with? I received a missive from a Sage L that directed me here. Know where I can find this person. Sage L. That can only mean... Luxim contacted you? If I may, in regards to what? Show him the missive. The sage holds the parchment for all of 3 seconds before nodding slowly. That's her handwriting, no doubt about it. Been a while since she penned her own missives. Master Luxim is sadly not amongst us. She vanished into the lower levels some time ago. She wasn't herself. He furrows his brow, visibly distressed. Life here is rather complicated. The old walls bless us with numerous mysteries. One of those is unending sleeplessness, an affliction that drove her mad. Luxim, she's alive? So she survived the Edict of Fire. Mantri's eyes widen with surprise. Hear the clinking of vials as his entire body trembles. A friend of yours? Sage Lexime and I go way back. She joined the school a year before I did, so more or less ran the paces together. If she's alive, why didn't she try to find me? Did you try to contact all the other sages you thought were alive? Right, right. We try not to cloud the skies with emissive birds. That'll just give the enemy something to follow. Like me, she probably tried to avoid detection, not light a signal fire. Were you two rivals or friends? Both? We were chroniclers, so there was competition of sorts. But I think I'm allowed to say we got along well enough. Not that many of my friendships survived my politics. I was in favor of surrendering the school to Kyros. Hardly a popular outlook. Remain silent. Last I know, she went into the depths of the old walls. To me, that's a death sentence, especially if she's no longer able to work her magic. I'm so sorry. I wish you had stumbled upon us sooner. Maybe you could have reconnected with her. Her mind was dwindling. I know she was fixated on making sure everything she carried out of the Velum Citadel was hidden and safe. She and I hid one such cache over by the farm. The others are, I presume, deeper in the old walls. Alexime knew an old sage trick that conceals the stashes, making them fade from view unless another chronicler stands near. When her magic began fading, she made a rush to conceal things, but aside from the one stash in the farm, only she knows where the rest lay. Who's in charge here? Unfortunately, that's a matter of debate at the moment. For a while, two men in particular led this settlement. Tidecaster Wagstaff, who has been here the longest, and Forgebound Master Jaspos. They made it possible to survive here, but rarely see things eye to eye. Were the conditions here not so fragile, I'm certain they would have come to blows ages ago. So it sounds like having Ebb here would be a good idea too. She thinks she's the last Tidecaster and the rest of them ran away. There's also a beast woman, a reef talon. Really quite a remarkable creature, actually. She held this place together and kept tempers at bay until fairly recently. She was as worthy a leader as we've seen in the wound, but she's no longer with us. So the bickering between Jaspos and Wagstaff continues. Tell me about Jaspos. Look for the broad-shouldered man with the booming voice. He's almost always taking out his frustration on some poor rock or boulder just there, by his forge. He points northwest towards a plume of smoke rising above the surrounding walls. Jaspos and his two apprentices arrived sometime after Wagstaff. I think we worried he'd be a true loyalist and demand we surrender to Kyros. But he's taken his shine to this place and is trying to create his own little corner of Tyranny. I think he likes the seclusion and being surrounded by a variety of rock types. He built most of the bridges you see here, some cisterns to filter water. He's a one-man work crew, and he knows it, unfortunately. He has more than a few supporters, particularly since he created those purifying aquifers. The water here causes illness. Without his help, most of us wouldn't have enough clean water to drink. I'd like to know more about Wagstaff. He chuckles, his lips pressed together in a slight, knowing smile. Prickly old fellow, Wagstaff. One of the last Tidecasters in the tiers, I believe. His eyes widen in sudden realization. His counter enemies to Kyros, true, but I'm certain he has no personal designs against the Overlord Feybinder. He's not one for pleasantries, or charisma of any sort, but he is a master of his craft. He was the first to treat the toxic waters in these old walls, and to date, it's the only cure that works. The wound would be in bad shape without him. Give him some time, and you might see beyond the gruff exterior. Just know that he prefers the solitude of his pool, so don't head over there unless you're willing to suffer his glare. A beast woman was in charge. That's a bit unusual. Indeed, Reef Talon is a most unusual beast. She's not like most beasts. Mel coughs nervously, shuffling slowly away from kills and shadow. Sage smells just like every other human Kills and Shadow has ever met. Anyway, Reef Talon was able to organize beasts and humans into effective patrols against the Bane. With her in charge of defense, casualties dropped. No Bane ever slipped into the common area. Disputes between beasts all but disappeared. At a certain point, it seemed foolish not to have her in charge. We've had a few beastmen wander into our refuge. I don't know how or why, but life here changes them. I don't know if it's the Bane, something in the water, something about the magics of this place. After a span or two living with us, most beastmen just seem to become a bit more civilized. Relaxed? Maybe speak to some of our beastmen. Perhaps you'll agree. What happened to Reef Talon? Reef Talon was our bulwark against not only the Bane, but death itself. She had a mystic gift, or so we thought. Her touch brought everyone, the wounded, the sick, the dying, back from the edge, but it changed them. The curse wasn't noticeable at first, but seemingly without fail, those healed would slowly but surely stop sleeping. A minor malady at first, but a cumulative one. As days and weeks go on, they lose themselves. Depression, malaise, paranoia, an ending unto itself. My master Lexine was treated by Reef Talon, and in her case, she lost her ability to work magic. Between this and some disputes about whether it's proper for a beast woman to lead humans, resulted in Reef Talon leaving the wound, disappearing into the depths of the old walls. Many of the sleepless followed. And the sleepless that left haven't returned, so it's hard to be optimistic about any of this. That's an unusual power. Can't say I've ever heard of a beastman mystic that does such things. I regret not being a better student of beastman magics, but I concur. This is most unusual. What's stranger still, Reef Talon did not boast about being a mystic, and beasts are nothing if not boastful. I have a hypothesis. Perhaps she slew so many Bane, their sickly powers have soaked into her very touch. He shrugs, letting out a long sigh. But it's just speculation. All I know for sure is scores of lives... Excuse me. All I know for sure is scores of lives were inadvertently ruined by her healing gift, and folks here have some complicated feelings toward Reef Talon. He pauses in thought, nervously rolling a quill between his fingers. None have recovered, unfortunately. The end result appears to be inevitable. Still, I can't help but wonder if Reef Talon could have corrected this. It's a shame. You should know, Fatebinder, that there are a small number of people that have been treated by Reef Talon, but haven't fully lost their grip on things. Jaspus's apprentice, Icely, for one. It is, though, just a matter of time until the worst sets in. Now let's speak of other matters. Is there anything I can help you with? What do you do here? What don't I do? Someone has to inventory the supplies, take census, ledger trades. It's all pretty unexciting, I assure you. I happen to like playing steward, balancing numbers is easy for me, and I have far more responsibilities than I ever did as a mere scribe at the Citadel. Aren't you a bit young for a sage? If I were a tenured sage, that may well be true, but I'm just an apprentice. Many in the guild scribe for decades before attaining rank. As the school is no more, I suppose I'll never officially be counted among the sages, but I am making my contributions to knowledge in my own ways. My master thinks similarly, though I think the loss of the school means more to her. I had a few years to know the other sages. She had a few decades. And where is your master? Master Lexime is sadly not amongst us. She vanished into the lower levels some time ago. She wasn't herself. He furrows his brow, visibly distressed. Life here is rather complicated, and the old walls, we've already read this. What do you do as the town steward? It's not anything fascinating, really. I just help with all sorts of practical affairs that help keep the wound running. Tracking inventory, coordinating supply runs, determining our resource deficiencies, logging births and deaths, organizing events, that sort of busy work. It's not intellectually demanding work, but I'm happy to do it. I have questions about the wound and its history. The analysis and creation of historical documents was one of my chief areas of focus at the Citadel, and I've had enough time to acquaint myself with the particulars of this place, so I suppose I'm the person to ask. What would you like to know? How did everyone get here? This place was discovered 3 years ago, by braver and more adventurous souls than Master Lexime and I. We're relative newcomers, going on about a year at this point. When Karen smashed Rostrum Voris's manor, his supporters fled into the cracked mountainside and discovered this place. At the time, life here with the Bane sounded better than life at war with the Archons. From there, the settlement grew in spurts. We're far off the beaten path, so visitors are rare, but the few we've gotten have often made this place home. Now, every encounter with the outside has been positive. When some disfavored found us, things got ugly fast, but the bloodshed was limited, and the survivors joined us in the end, if a bit reluctantly. And what do you know about this place? Remarkable place, is it not? He stretches his arms apart, looking around for emphasis. We've no idea how old this corner of the old walls happens to be, but the tunnel leading into it came into being a few years ago. Cairn's fear is unleashed in a battle on the top side, whatever powers he used to split under the mountains and fracture these old walls. He points upward, past the crashing waterfalls and towards the exposed sky. The divided walls flare outward, a giant maw stretched towards the firmament. Crack the whole darn old walls in half, and now sunlight and water are here for the first time since... ever. Makes me wonder if there are other old walls like this that are hidden from view to those of us just walking the surface. Now, how do you survive in this place? What do you eat? We get enough sunlight to cultivate crops on the upper levels. Cabbage, nash root, radishes, mushrooms even. The biggest challenge here is drinking water, despite appearances. He leans forward while speaking, his tone energetic. It's a rather interesting phenomenon, actually. Something in the old walls environment leaches into the water and corrupts it, producing a most curious disease in the afflicted. There's no fever or chills, bleeding, vomiting, or what have you, but you will waste away over time, as if one were starving. Tidecaster Wagstaff devised a method to magically treat the water, rendering it safe to consume, and with curative properties for those already sick. The solution is a bit slow at making large amounts, but fortunately, Jaspos constructed some stone aquifers. Water poured into these aquifers will drain a few hours later and emerge purified. Between their contributions, we're able to make the wound a proper home, so long as the two keep their squabbling to a minimum. But do the Bane not threaten you? He nods, absentmindedly rubbing the dried ink between his fingers. Yes, of course. We have a system for that. You've met our greeting party in the caves, I take it. Incidentally, what happened to... He shakes his head, dismissing the thought. It doesn't matter. The point is that we have a contingent of beastmen with us. They've adapted exceedingly well to the old walls, and show little fear of the abominations. They've been perfectly eager to dig their claws into any that come our way. It's surprising that even works, by the way, but who am I to argue? At any rate, they keep the entry points to the wound clear, and seem content to keep doing so. In fact, I dare say some of them have come to love hunting the Bane, or just have a death wish, and that's why they volunteer for patrol day after day. What do Wagstaff and Jaspos argue about? A few things that matter, and I mean to belittle those men, but I often feel like they both demand exaltation, and more importantly, or whatever adoration someone else is getting. He clears his throat, turning red with a smile. Through their magic, they make life possible here. We all look up to them. I think they both feel a genuine sense of duty to protect us all. Too bad they don't get along despite this shared goal. Talk to them directly, and you'll see what I mean. Keep in mind, things weren't always like this. The Beastwoman Reef Talon had a way of keeping things civil, but since her disappearance, old grievances have reemerged. Alright, farewell. Ah, very well. Fatebinder, if you haven't done so yet, please speak with Jaspos or Wagstaff. The wound doesn't speak with a single voice, but these two come the closest to such a thing. As you turn to leave, you see Lantry lost in thought, rubbing his cerulean ink between his fingers and thumb. Yep, I guess one of your old friends is here. What should we expect? She's an old friend of mine, and by now you've already detected the understatement in my voice, so ask your questions. An old love, I presume. An old love interest. You presume correctly. We're deeply intimate for the better part of 15 years. The school gave up long ago trying to make rules against fraternization, and, well, we took full advantage of living in the modern era of the School of Ink and Quill. When sages could do away with furtive copulation and the foolish attempts to curb the natural inclination of scholars to rut. It was her magic I loved most. She was gifted, truly gifted. She could achieve these little accents in her spells that none of us could replicate. At first, I had nothing but envy and hate for her, but somewhere along the line, it became adoration. I just hoped to Kyros that if I rubbed up against her enough, maybe some of her talent would rub off onto me. No such luck. What would you like to know? If you were so close, why didn't you flee the Citadel together? There was a time when we were inseparable. I learned much of my magic from her, and her from me. We were each other's mentor and student. It's a very special sort of bond. But it was a relationship that I found through my own convictions. In the years before Kyros' conquest, I urged our school to surrender. And urge is an understatement. Rabidly advocated would be a more apt description. Lexime did not share my assessment of Kyros, or my opinions on what must be done. I was in the dissenting minority. Most felt I was a traitor, Lexime included. But it wasn't about to back off from my belief that surrender was the right idea. Considering what came to pass, I feel justified in my stance. While I normally adore being right about things, in this particular case, my tumescent smugness maybe isn't worth the friendships it all cost me. What do you make of her condition? From the sound of it, she's afflicted with sleeplessness, and by all accounts, madness would naturally follow. But if she's down in the old walls and enfeebled, she'd be easy prey for the Bane. Heard of anything like this before? Well, there are all manner of magics that kill a person slowly. Where to begin? I'm more perplexed that she, and by the sound of it, others too, were first healed and then grew ill. Do you think there's a way to save her? My mind leaps to the worst conclusion. Like a severed arm, the damage is irreversible. Maybe if she got out of the old walls, maybe if she could be drugged into sleep, or I don't know why I keep speculating. Well, I assure you, whatever struck her, I won't let it happen to you. I doubt you can make that promise, but thanks all the same. If such a state afflicted me, after I tire of writing without pause for days on end, I'd ask that you put me out of my misery. So you two worked on the Chronicle together. We're but two members of a team spanning generations, but yes, we both contributed to the Chronicles. Long bouts of field work and longer stretches of authoring or finding suited our temperaments. My colleagues insisted original research was the way to make a name for myself, but the accounting of everything is a cause greater than us all. Lexime saw the Chronicle as half record of things that were, and half record of how things ought to be. To her, each moment we record offers universal insights into how people act in the future. I take the more modest stance that you can't stand in the same river twice, and the same general can't fight the same war twice. So history is of limited predictive power. Forgive me, you didn't ask for the nuances of our philosophical debates. What do you make of these Chronicle fragments she asked us to find? My heart sings every time I can safeguard a text against destruction. Still, there's something bothering me about these writings. Let's look around a bit more, shall we? Ask me again when I have a few pieces to compare. Whew, that was a lot of reading. Alright. I'm going to call the episode here, and the next one we'll explore the Bastard's Wound. I'm getting tempted to go grab Ebb, Siren, and I guess just Ebb and Siren, because Ebb is a Tidecaster here, and she thought she was the last one. And that stone in the entrance refers to Siren, so we'll see. We'll take care of it with this party first, and we'll come back with another party later on, probably. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next episode.